Thank you for joining me on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, or sticking around to this final segment of the episode. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, and getting into the final discussion of the show, the hottest topic around the NFL Combine has been J.J. McCarthy and his performance, interviews with teams, and the drills that he did at the NFL Combine have people feeling a lot better about him and a lot more positive, showing him in a positive light than they did at the start of this. And I have a few reasons why and things I wanted to talk about with J.J. McCarthy, just because initially the questions among the NFL representatives about J.J. McCarthy were that, he won the national championship. It's awesome that he did that. It's very impressive that he did that with the team that he had, Jim Harbaugh there as well. But people had questions about his arm talent, his size, coming into the draft, and he kind of put all those to rest just initially on the measurements and the evaluations before he actually threw. He came in at 6'2" at 219 pounds, which was 10 pounds more than he was listed by Michigan at the start of the college season. So he looked a lot bigger than people were expecting. And I watched some of the combine mostly that day because of the quarterbacks and wide receivers. So initially, just from what I thought, my initial thoughts on his size, he looked a lot bigger and much more filled out than I thought. So that was already a plus. And on top of it, just comparing him to the other quarterbacks, he was already taller than Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, and he's also now 5 pounds heavier than those guys. And Bo Nix, initially at the start of all of this offseason, Bo Nix and JJ were very close to, but I think these measurements not only help him jump on top of Bo Nix, or over Bo Nix, I should say. Comparing him to Caleb Williams, he's supposed to go number one, and just based on size alone, he fills out better than Caleb Williams. A lot of teams make that a big deal, how tall they are, the size of their quarterback, especially going into the National Football League. I don't have to talk about how physical it is. That only helps them. And just based on athleticism, I think all these guys are very athletic. They move well outside the pocket. They're good in the pocket. And leading into just arm talent, away from size, he performed very well in the position drills, throwing to some of these receivers in front of these scouts and getting that first impression out there. I thought it was a big deal. I don't think I mentioned it on the show, but just throwing at the combine. I know I talked about a lot of the players that didn't perform at the combine. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison. They all didn't test at the combine, and J.J. McCarthy did. And I didn't talk about how important that was, at least to me, because of, I think the biggest reason just is getting that recency bias, that first impression out there to these scouts. And it makes a lot of difference at the start, especially because it helps build that hype a little bit around you. It climbs you up draft boards like it does to J.J. McCarthy. And if you perform really well and just blow everybody out of the water with your interviews, the testing and everything, you're the talk of everything. You're in the news everywhere. Everyone's talking about you. And they don't have anything else. These other quarterbacks don't have anything else to kind of back that up. Yeah, they have the film. Obviously, if you're Caleb Williams, you have the on-field tape that everyone can show. Here's why he's better, obviously. But these other guys that are kind of in a loop of, are they going to go top three? Are they going to drop? Are teams going to trade out of the top three because they don't need a quarterback? These other guys, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, they didn't throw, so they don't have anything recently to back up their case for being ahead of J.J. McCarthy. He projected his abilities. He was popular personality-wise with everybody, so he's already giving off those good sensations to everybody that these other quarterbacks just chose not to. And, he's going to gain all this media attention. He's going to be in the news a lot more. And just hearing his name over and over again, it's going to make people look him up, find out what he's really about, and then they might think, oh, he's actually a good player. A lot of these scouts, representatives for these teams might think, I wasn't really taking him serious before, but now he blew everybody out of the water. I'm going to look more into him, and maybe I don't have to trade up for a Drake May. I don't have to invest all this stuff in Jaden Daniels. If JJ McCarthy is just as good, if not better than them in some estimations, why would I move? I could save my draft picks and just wait on JJ McCarthy at an 8 with the Falcons, at a number 6 spot with the Giants. Only have to trade up to the number 5 spot if you're the Raiders, if you're the Vikings. If you don't get a quarterback in free agency, you don't have to trade up to a number 2 or a number 3 because the Chargers are most likely the favorite to trade out of that 5 spot, and you can jump these teams like the Giants and the Falcons and get JJ McCarthy at a cheaper price than you would have at the start of the combine, where people thought, it was top 3 or you're not going to get a really good quarterback. JJ McCarthy has blown everybody out of the water, and ESPN's Louis Riddick, a former team executive, he's been in these situations, making some of these decisions. He went on the scene, or he was in the scene at Indianapolis, and he talked with other representatives around the league and just supporting the idea that JJ McCarthy is rising in a lot of people's minds. In his words, he said, "I'll go so much as to say this, just off camera, talking to some personnel people, they think JJ McCarthy's going top 5. Just adding on to that story of, JJ McCarthy and his sort of resume that he's building with these teams. He met with a lot of teams, actually. The Bears, the Patriots, the Commanders, obviously those in the top 3. He met with the Giants, they're at 6. The Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders, like I mentioned. Even the Seattle Seahawks. Still questions about their quarterback position. Drew Lock most likely not coming back. And Geno Smith on an expiring deal. He's getting older. He met with them, so that's pretty intriguing as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who don't have a quarterback as of right now, still need to sign Baker, or they could decide to go through the draft and get J.J. McCarthy if they feel that's in their best interest, and they want to sign somebody else, not use up that money on Baker Mayfield. Everyone, teams that weren't even in the conversation for a quarterback before, Seattle and the Buccaneers, are now projecting that interest in J.J. McCarthy because of him performing above everyone's expectations at the Combine. And do I buy some of this hype? What I think of all of this? I think he's more talented than people gave him credit for at the start. Yeah, I also had questions about his height. I'll definitely admit that. I'm pretty sure I said it on this show, but now that I saw those questions be essentially answered with him coming in heavier, a lot more filled out, giving off the sensation that he could withstand some of the hits in whatever situation he leads up to. That's kind of eased my doubts in my mind. But then other than that, just on the quarterbacks that are in the talks with him, one of them being Drake May. I think Drake May was the one that was just on the outside. I think Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams were battling for who was the best. A lot of people had Jaden Daniels. Most of them had Caleb. And then there was Drake May that was voiced to need more time than these other guys. He was going to have to be on the same plan as a Jordan Love, kind of sit back, wait, develop him a little bit more. He didn't perform at the Combine, didn't prove anybody wrong, didn't silence those doubts. If anything, those doubts grew a lot more with people like Merrill Hodge coming out and saying all these negative things about his game. Just on terms of on the field, he thought he was pretty sloppy, wasn't good at decision making, all this stuff. He didn't silence any of that because he didn't throw, and J.J. McCarthy took advantage of it. And now I'm starting to believe that people might take a J.J. McCarthy over a Drake May because of the recent positive news that is trending in the way of J.J. McCarthy in comparison to Drake May. That's something that came up to it. Does it have to do a lot with the recent success that Michigan had? Probably to some extent, because you saw all the success that surrounded J.J. McCarthy. You wanted to see if he could back it up. in front of NFL scouts and at the combine, and he kind of did just that and proved that, it wasn't just about the team. It wasn't all the guys around him were carrying him, and all he had to do was just not mess up. I think with some of the throws he had at the combine, some of his performances with teams and meeting with teams, everyone kind of got a sense of what this kid is like, a potential future leader for their organization. I think a lot of people were left very satisfied with what they found out about J.J. McCarthy. And just on top of that, if you're if you're the Giants or if you're the Falcons, what really do you have to lose with waiting or just moving up to that 5 spot to take J.J. McCarthy at this point? Because you're in already a situation where offensively you're about to lose Saquon Barkley. There's major doubts around Daniel Jones and where he stands. I mentioned Brian Daboll and General Manager Joe Schoen. Are they on the hot seat? They might feel like they have to do something. And you're not really losing anything by just moving up a spot and taking a quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, because he doesn't cost you as much just to move into the 5 spot. And if he performs very well, it buys you guys more time. And if he performs really well, he could start to develop into that franchise guy. And then, all the benefits come with that. If he performs well, people want to play with him. It allows free agents to come in more, want to play for the Giants, instead of looking at the Giants like, I don't know, their quarterback, I don't know about him. Is their head coach going to be there? What's their offense like? Is their defense really that good? If you have a quarterback there, that's a huge negotiation point for teams to want to come play with you. Same with the Falcons. They already have a lot of young talent, and they don't really have much to lose if, the Giants don't draft a quarterback, decide to stick with Daniel Jones. J.J. McCarthy might fall to 8, and then, if he performs very well with a very good team win the Falcons, you could say the talent level with Michigan and the Falcons is the same, if not better. He'll have all the support in the world there, a new offense, new head coach. They're all kind of learning, growing together. It'll be a very positive thing for these teams to just stay put and not have to use a lot of capital to move up for a Jaden Daniels, a Caleb Williams. If J.J. McCarthy right now has proven that he could be a lot closer to them than he is to the other guys like Bo Nix or Michael Penix, who Michael Penix is also climbing up draft boards, but not as much as J.J. McCarthy, I believe. And that's where he kind of stands right now. Really the talk of the combine, the overall winner, you could say, of the combine. And a lot of people performed well, but in terms of importance to a team, X-factor kind of players, I think J.J. McCarthy seized his opportunity more than other guys and took advantage of it, and that's why he sits where he does today. Potentially in the top 5, top 10, we're going to have to wait and see. But that's all the time I have for you guys on today's episode. A very interesting conversation there at the end, talking about J.J. McCarthy and what this could mean. Another layer to this NFL draft that's coming up in late April that just sends it in a whole different direction. But, that's going to do it for this episode and that topic. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone listening to this episode or who joined in afterwards during the show or after. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Make sure to also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of this network's content, not just this show. There's other stuff out there as well. But if you like this show, want to tune in more, want to see other episodes I have out there, you could go check out the GSMC Sports Network channel or the Podcast Network channel on YouTube for other YouTube shorts that I've done, the individual video segments of the live episodes. If you can't catch a whole episode, just tune in for one segment, as well as other live shows that I've done that you could catch up on those channels as well. In saying that, I've been your host, Manny Maradiaga. Tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL and football conversations. Take care, guys. I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to